Picture this. Center court, Wimbledon, and a 21-year-old from Quezon City is standing across the net from the reigning champion of the entire tournament, the woman who lifted this exact trophy 12 months earlier, and somehow, against every projection anyone in tennis media had made that morning, she is the one hitting the cleaner ball. That is not a hypothetical. That happened on July 4, 2026, and her name is Alexandra Eala, ranked outside the top 30, walking into the third round against defending champion IGA Swiatek. Nobody outside a small, fiercely loyal corner of Filipino tennis fandom expected her to still be playing by the second week. And yet here she was, in a match that stretched into a 7-6 first-set tiebreak before she closed it out 6-2 in the second. Rewind a few days and the story starts smaller, almost quietly. On June 30th, the 29 seed opened her tournament by beating Mexico's Renata Zarazua in straight sets, 6-1, 6-2, the kind of scoreline that gets a polite mention in a results ticker and nothing more. Nobody was writing think pieces yet. She was just another seed doing what a seed is supposed to do in round one. But there was a detail buried in the build-up that, in hindsight, tells you everything about how she got here. In the weeks before the tournament, Eala had been sharpening her grass court game training alongside Wimbledon royalty, partnering five-time singles champion Venus Williams in doubles at Bad Homburg. That is not a coincidence. That is a young player deliberately putting herself next to greatness, absorbing whatever she could before the biggest fortnight of her career. She kept winning. Round of 64, a gritty three-setter. Round of 32, and then July 4th arrives, and the entire complexion of her tournament changes in one afternoon. The match against Swiatek was not a fluke scoreline padded by an off day from the champion. It was a genuine fight, an 18-point tiebreak that could have gone either way until it didn't, and when it finally ended, cameras caught Eala barely able to finish a sentence in her on-court interview because she was crying, the weight of the moment landing all at once in front of a crowd that had, by then, completely adopted her as their own. Think about what that win actually meant beyond the scoreboard. It marked the end of Swiatek's title defense, and the reigning champion stood to fall out of the top 10 of the rankings as a direct result, having 1,870 points evaporate off her total in a single afternoon. That is the kind of collateral damage that turns a good story into a genuinely seismic one. This wasn't a top seed cruising past a wild card. This was a five-time major champion getting dismantled by a player nobody had circled on their bracket, and it happened on the one court in tennis where history gets written in real time, whether you're ready for it or not. And it wasn't isolated. On that same day, over on another court, second seed and former champion Elena Rybakina was also eliminated, beaten by 25th seed Elise Mertens, so the entire draw was cracking open at once, the kind of afternoon that makes tournament directors quietly rewrite their projections for the rest of the fortnight. But the headline, the one everyone was talking about by that evening, belonged to the 21-year-old from the Philippines who had just done something no player from her country had ever done before. Because here's the part that turns this from a good tennis story into a genuinely historic one. Eala became the first Filipina in the Open era to reach a Grand Slam fourth round, and the first ever to be seeded at any of the four majors. Sit with that for a second. Not the first Filipina to win a set, not the first to make noise in qualifying. The first, full stop, to get this deep into a Grand Slam draw with a seed next to her name. For a nation whose sporting identity has largely been built around boxing legends and Olympic weightlifters, watching one of their own cut through the most storied tennis tournament on the planet is the kind of moment that reshapes what young athletes back home believe is possible for themselves. She wasn't just winning matches. She was redrawing the map of who gets to dream about center court. 2 days after the Swiatek upset, reality caught back up with her, the way it eventually does for every underdog run, no matter how magical the 2 weeks leading up to it felt. Eala faced 13th seed Jasmine Paolini in the round of 16 and lost in 3 hard-fought sets, 6-4, 4-6, 6-3, on center court on a Monday afternoon. Paolini was no pushover walking into that match either. She'd had a difficult season leading into the tournament, but grass clearly agreed with her, and she'd already proven she could go deep at this exact event, having been a Wimbledon runner-up back in 2024. When Paolini spoke afterward, she didn't downplay what the moment meant to her either, calling stepping onto that court something special, an amazing atmosphere unlike anywhere else to play tennis. 2 players, 2 very different career stages, both fully aware. They were part of something the crowd would remember. And that crowd, by the way, did not treat Eala's exit like a footnote. When she left the court after the loss, she didn't storm off, didn't hide her disappointment, didn't rush through the tunnel. She received a raucous ovation as she left center court, and she took a solemn moment to acknowledge the crowd, forming a heart shape with her hands before she disappeared down the tunnel. That single gesture tells you how completely London had taken to her in the space of about a week. She arrived a name casual tennis fans might have half recognized from a doubles partnership or a junior highlight reel. She left a fan favorite, the kind of player a crowd stands for even in defeat, because they understood they just watched someone announce herself on the biggest stage the sport offers. Now here's where the story gets interesting in a completely different way, because losing in the fourth round of a Grand Slam is not actually a loss in any meaningful sense once you look at what it does for a career. That result lifted her 4 places to a projected new career high ranking of world number 28. Think about the jump. She walked into the tournament outside the top 30, ranked in the low 30s, essentially unseeded in terms of the sport's broader consciousness even if the draw sheet gave her a number. She walks out of it as a top 30 player with a signature win over a 5-time major champion sitting on her resume forever. Nobody can take that away from her. 20 years from now, whatever else happens in her career, there will always be a line that reads Wimbledon 2026, defeated the defending champion, first Filipina to the second week. That is permanent. And the money followed the ranking points, because that's how this sport works at the top level. Her 4th round finish alone earned her 240 ranking points, pushing her total to 1,666. That is not pocket change in the WTA's point system, and it is exactly the kind of jump that changes seeding at the next major, changes which tournaments will offer wildcards, changes how sponsors and equipment companies start valuing a player's name. What made the whole run even more compelling, though, wasn't just the results. It was how she talked about it afterward, because there's a version of this story where a 21-year-old rides an emotional high through one signature win and then completely unravels in the disappointment of the loss that follows it. That is not what happened here. Speaking to reporters after the Paolini match, Eala said the week overall would add to her confidence, calling it one of her best results and noting the importance of walking into every match believing she's able to win it. That is not the language of someone who got lucky and knows it. That is the language of a competitor who understands exactly what she built over those 2 weeks and has every intention of building on it rather than treating it as a one-off fairy tale. She went further, too, breaking down what she felt she'd actually gained beyond the ranking points and the prize money. She pointed specifically to how she'd handled pressure, acknowledging that pressure exists every single week on tour, but that she was proud of facing it directly and staying composed when she needed to control her emotions most. And in a separate conversation about her season overall, she described the mental side of competing in strikingly honest terms, calling the year a roller coaster with genuinely tough moments, crediting her team's support for getting her through them, and describing her ability to stay positive and simply enjoy playing tennis as her superpower. There's something almost disarming about an athlete this young being that self-aware in real time, not waiting for a retirement documentary years down the line to reflect on what a breakthrough tournament meant, but articulating it clearly within hours of a loss that ended her run. So where does this actually leave her heading into the rest of the season? The North American hardcourt swing is coming fast, Canada in early August, Cincinnati right behind it, and then the US Open itself closing out the month, and every single one of those tournaments now has to account for a version of Eala that didn't exist on their radar screens back in June. A projected world number 28 is not a player anyone wants to draw in round 1 anymore. Seeding committees have to plan around her. Broadcasters covering the Filipino market, a country of well over 100 million people who just watched one of their own take down a defending Wimbledon champion in primetime, are going to be building entire coverage packages around her matches for the foreseeable future. That's not speculation dressed up as fact. That's simply how the sport's economics work whenever a player breaks through at this level in a country that hasn't historically had elite tennis representation. You saw it when Emma Raducanu ran the table at the US Open. You saw it when Leylah Fernandez made an improbable final that same year. Breakthrough runs from players representing underrepresented tennis nations don't just make good television for 2 weeks. They permanently shift how much attention an entire audience pays to the sport going forward. What makes Eala's version of this story land a little differently, though, is the shape of it. She didn't back into a lucky draw and ride a soft bracket to an unlikely final. She beat a 5-time Grand Slam champion, the actual defending champion of the tournament she was playing in, on the single most famous court in the sport, in a match that went the distance and could have broken either way in that opening tiebreak. Then she turned around 2 days later and made a former finalist work for every single game across 3 full sets before finally succumbing. There is no asterisk on this run. There is no easy explanation that involves a favorable bracket or an opponent having an off tournament. She beat the best player. standing in front of her and then pushed the next best player to the absolute limit. So where does this go from here? That's genuinely the question worth sitting with, because breakthrough runs at majors are only half the story. The other half is what a player does with the months that follow, whether the ranking points convert into sustained results or whether the pressure of suddenly being a marked player, someone every scouting report now takes seriously, ends up working against her instead of for her. Some players use a run like this as the launch pad for the rest of their career. Others find that the spotlight that made the breakthrough so exciting is the exact thing that makes the follow-up so much harder. Eala herself seems to understand that distinction better than most 21-year-olds would, given how clearly she talked about confidence and pressure in the same breath as celebrating what she'd just accomplished. The Philippines has never had a tennis player reach this level before, which means there's no domestic blueprint for what comes next, no previous Filipina major champion whose career arc gives everyone a sense of what a realistic trajectory looks like from here. She is, in a very real sense, writing the entire template herself, in real time, with a hard-court swing bearing down and a US Open seeding position that would have been unthinkable to her just a few weeks ago. Whatever happens across the next couple of months, one thing is already locked in permanently. On July 4, 2026, a 21-year-old from Quezon City walked onto center court against the defending Wimbledon champion, and she won. Everything after that is simply the story of what she builds on top of an afternoon that's already earned its place in Philippine sporting history.